when you take money out of a Roth IRA, when it's time for retirement, it is going to be tax-free, right? So you're going to receive 100% of those payments. You do not have to worry about it being taxed. And the idea behind a Roth IRA being like non-taxable or tax-free when it's retirement age and it's time for you to pull it out is simply that you've done it with quote unquote after tax dollars, right? Which differs from like a traditional IRA, right? When you talk traditional IRA, you're pretty much talking more so like, hey, you're contributing to this with pre-tax dollars. So if you're contributing to this with pre-tax dollars, then, obviously they're like, all right, well, we're going to get our taxes one way or another. But the great thing about hiring your children is you can take that money, put it into a Roth IRA. And then what happens is, let's just say you started your child out and then your child now has that concept and that mindset of, hey, I now have to contribute to my Roth IRA. What would happen if they invested freaking $7,000 from the age of 7 when you hired them? I didn't even do from 1, right? Let's just do from 7 to age 65. The total contributions inside of that Roth IRA would have been $406,000, but the value would be $5,308,000. So I want you guys to really understand that compound interest is something that we need to take advantage of. Understanding taxes and how we can minimize taxes is something that we need to really lean into, and really figuring out like, okay, well, if this is a tax deduction, how can I really take advantage of this? Because so many people are like, okay, I can pay my child. Yes, that's great. You can pay your child, but how about you pay your child and you invest into a retirement account? You teach them about this retirement account. And then it's, also going to be instilled in their mind that they have to keep this retirement account going. And then when it's retirement age, they're going to be set for life. I know so many people want to set their kids up for life, right? So we need to focus and lean more into things like this.
No, that's vitally important. And it could be invested in a variety of different things too, right? So it's like even the rate of return that you get is all dependent. So just another example, because people might say, well, all right, well, people are always going to find ways to try to put holes in things. So it's like, all right, let's make it even more realistic standpoint, where we just go from age 10 to 18, right? So you're just putting money. They're not even putting money. They don't even put $1 in after you only put money in for them. They don't put no money in for themselves at all. So let's say you put $5,000 in, which is even lower than the maximum amount that you can put in. If you put $5,000 in every year for your child from ages 10 to 18, and then they just left it alone. They didn't do anything. At their age 60, if there was a 7% rate of return, which is a very realistic number, they would have $1 million, $1,026,000 to be exact. Now, assuming that it was a 10% rate of return, annual average, which, I mean, that's what, if you look at what the S&P has done over the last 20 years, that's what it's actually been closer to 10 than 7. Then that would be $3.7 million. So this is, people like, well, they got to wait. I already know the pessimist, so I'm already answering the question.
Not good.
So it's like, oh, you got to wait till 60. Who wants to wait? Okay, well, if somebody had $1 million for you and you did nothing for it outside of working relatively minimum work as a child for your parents, if somebody had $1 million for you when you were 60 years old, would you be mad about that? Tax free, by the way. No. You don't have to pay tax on it. Would that be something that you would be discouraged about? Because 9 times out of 10, when you get to retirement, and we're gonna talk about retirement plans, but most people don't have anywhere close to $1 million when they get to retirement after they work their whole entire life. So most people work their whole entire life and don't have $1 million or more. When you could have had $1 million just from having your parents put money away for a couple of years when you was a child, and let alone other money that you put into it, a Roth IRA as you're an adult, or an IRA or 401k or other type of retirement plans. Like, this is just the extra bonus that was set up for you when you were young. So it's just important to plan for long term. It's important to plan for the future because of a compounded interest. Like, you could really literally make your child a millionaire with a relatively little bit amount of money. So a little amount of money for a short period of time. And it's almost guaranteed as long as you follow those principles. So that's something that I think should be important, because like you said, you get the tax deduction anyway, and they still can spend money too. So it's not like if you put $5,000, if you pay them $14,000, well, they still have $9,000 surplus, so they can still have discretionary income that they can utilize to buy stuff for themselves, Jordans or whatever they want to buy, that you're actually paying for anyway, but at least you're getting a tax deduction. So it's just about being smart. You know, the tax code was always made for business owners and investors. It wasn't made for employees. And when you understand that, then you understand why it's so important to establish a business and to be an investor.
That's a fact. I love when you guys validate the things that I say.
People talk about generational wealth and sustainable wealth, but like if you're not taking these steps to create it, how is it going to exist? So like these are just very, like that is generational. Like that's something that you get at 18, your parents done for you. When you have kids, you should be doing the same thing. That's generational, right? Like we got to start looking in those lenses. But you brought up retirement plans, so let's talk about some retirement contributions, because that's something, again. Taxes, they're not going to teach you. Retirement plans, they forget about it. Like this is just like unspoken language for so many. So let's dive into that.
They just literally, even when you start a job, they're like, yeah, here, click your elections. What do you want to do? It's like, what? I would never forget when I first started corporate. I'm like, what? I don't know. How am I going to make the best decision? Anybody for me to consult with? No. You just have to choose.
They tell you like, yo, there's a guy coming on Thursday and he's coming during your lunch break. So if you have time, just go sit with him and then he'll explain some things to you. And then you never see the guy for the rest of the year.
Yeah, yep. That's a fact.
That's a fact.
And this is for people. A lot of stuff that we went over so far was only for entrepreneurs. So this is for people that's not entrepreneurs also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So let's talk about retirement contributions, because we do need to think about the future, right? So Rashad, you've mentioned it, a few times, especially when we've spoken just in terms of like retirement, and do we even have enough money, and really understanding that and knowing what your limits are. Like so many people aren't aware or have an understanding of, okay, well, this is how much I can actually contribute, and am I actually maxing it out? So one of the things that I mentioned as it relates to employees earlier was, hey, you need to max out your retirement your retirement contribution. And then for my business owners, I need you all to take retirement a lot more serious, right? So we have thousands of clients in Brooks Alliance, and I can tell you that retirement is not at the forefront. If we mention it, then it's like, yeah, I want to retire. Like I want to have retirement. But because everyone's so like consumed with, getting their business together and and serving their clients and doing all these things, they're not necessarily focused on their retirement. And it is a tax deduction. It is a tax deduction. You can match it, right? So you can literally put yourself on payroll. You can contribute to a retirement account and have your company match it the same way that they do at your, when you were working W-2. So I need you all to lean more into retirement and understand that this is really, really important. And we can't just be like, oh, well, I'm going to make enough money through my business. Wealthy people still plan for retirement. It doesn't matter how much money you plan on having. You still have to plan for retirement. So let's just talk about your contribution limit. So for all of my 401ks, 403bs, 457bs, your contribution limit for 2024 is $23,000. It surprised me that they only increased these limits by $500. Like I feel like they were pretty reasonable with a lot of different things that they increased this year. They increased it a lot more than they typically do, but anyway, it's up $500 from 2023. So if you're doing a catch-up contribution, obviously, Rashad, what's the age if you're over 50? You
50,
get to do
50.
50. Yeah. So if you're over 50, then you can contribute an additional $8,000. So traditional IRA contribution, Roth IRA contribution is $7,000. So if you are doing the catch-up contribution of $8,000, if you are doing a catch-up contribution, you can contribute $8,000. And then HSA accounts. So I talked about this earlier, right? Like he's saying, hey, these are things that you can actually invest. I mean, you can actually contribute to help you, just save on taxes. So the contribution limit for 2024 is $4,150. And if you have a family, it is $8,300. All right. So let's take a step back and because there's a lot of people that have W-2 income, and they also have retirement income, right? So one thing as a business owner that I want you all to understand is that your max contribution, or everyone, your max contribution in terms of other investment vehicles and everything for the year for 2024 is $69,000. So let's just talk about it. And I'll just use a business owner. The business owner, they're like, all right, well, listen, this business, I want to contribute more than $23,000. You told me that I can contribute up to $69,000, but then you're telling me that my 401k contribution limit is it's $2,300. Like, it's not making sense, right? So what does that mean? What that means is that, again, I told you guys where you start is not necessarily where you're going to finish. So when you're a smaller business owner, you may be looking into things like solo 401ks, traditional IRAs, contributing to Roth IRAs. But what happens is now once you start making more money, now you're considering, hey, I need to maybe consider investing into a SEP IRA, right? Or, hey, I need a 401k plan. And keep in mind, guys, this falls along the lines of you are not going to, where you start is not where you're going to finish, right? Because having a 401k is a little bit more pricier than obviously doing like a simple IRA or traditional IRA. It is even a little bit more it's cheaper than having a SEP IRA. But again, once you start having employees and when you start making more money and you need to start doing more things, a 401k is a little bit more advantageous, because what happens is you now can not only have your 401k and pay yourself, but you also can do what's called profit sharing, right? So while the max of that 401k is $23,000, for the remaining balance, you can do a profit share and contribute into that 401k into your retirement. Right. So now it's a situation where now you can contribute up to that $69,000 every single year. So I think that it's important that we understand that there are different retirement accounts, and you just have to figure out like, okay, well, where am I right now? And what's the best retirement account for me right now?